The global world today is changing at an alarming rate. These changes impact everyone, including organizations. The only organizations that are able to survive are those who are able to change and transition to respond to the changes around them. It is therefore critical for organizations to be ready for that change at all times. Hence the reason we are discussing the readiness for change. Readiness for change refers to the commitment and determination of organizations to implement the required change. Change is not easy to accomplish, hence it is critical for all members of the organization to believe in change and to have a positive attitude towards it. In order for us to understand and explain what the readiness for change entails, let us look at an organization that went through change and how it prepared for change. The company chosen is GrowthPoint. The company sets an example of how to prepare for change. I have the pleasure of interviewing GrowthPoint's human resources business partner, Rian Moshare, who's at the forefront of GrowthPoint's readiness for change.
Ash, you're correct. We went through some changes in the company. Just to give you a bit of background of who GrowthPoint is.
GrowthPoint is the biggest JSE-listed property company. We went through a robust acquisition strategy in the past 3 years, acquiring AkiCap and Cycom and Tiber. The company grew in assets. However, internally within our employees, we went through a chaotic stage. Some of the things that we experienced was crisis and short-term focus, inconsistent results, lack of teamwork, shifting priorities and lack of direction and goals, and lastly, inadequate people and resources. It was clear that we needed to be ready for change.
It was realized that GrowthPoint needed to create an environment that was ready for change. One of the models that better explained the position that we as GrowthPoint found ourselves in is the Berkeley model for change.
One of the models that GrowthPoint had to adopt was the Berkeley model of change. This model says that change happens in 2 orders. The first order happens when some features of the organization change, which leads to transactional change and organizational climate change. The second order, which is where GrowthPoint found ourselves in, happens when the organization undergoes certain fundamental changes, and this leads to transformational change and change in organizational culture. And this was quite fundamental for GrowthPoint. GrowthPoint went through a 5-stage process of preparing for change. The model below was customized after a thorough analysis of the environment. The analysis had to take into consideration both the internal and external forces. Let's take a closer look at this 5-stage model. The first stage says ensuring the vision is shared, clear, and enacted by all employees. A bottoms-up approach was done, where the entire organization was involved in workshops and in defining what the company vision should be. The second stage was ensuring that innovation is one part of the organization culture and share that across the whole. The key emphasis from all employees was that the organization must be innovative, and this became a value. The third stage was ensuring that formal and informal systems and processes are exploited to drive change. Here we saw positive symbols and language being encouraged and used in formal and informal meetings, and most importantly, in Friday drinks. The fourth phase was implementation capacity, ensuring sufficient skilled people are deployed. We had to make sure that credible leaders were placed at the forefront of leading the change. Also, ensuring that change agents are appointed amongst teams, where leaders were driving the change and leading the change and not managing it. The first stage was, does the organization create the space for innovation when new ideas feed into the vision? Here we saw GrowthPoint putting in place a reward systems where employees could bring innovation and bring any new ideas that they might have. New company values were also launched in July following this intervention. Let's take a look at them.
Thank you, Ria, for your time.
Sure.
It is evident that for organizations to be ready for change, there needs to be a full understanding of the company's environment, commitment, and determination from the stakeholders. GrowthPoint achieved this through their vision, having the right people and systems, and creating a space to thrive.